crime, conspiracy, murder. Well, today we're talking about all of those things just wrapped into one big old what is going on around here. What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video, and today we are going to do kind of a little deep dive into the mystery in the case of Jack the Ripper. Probably one of history's most infamous serial killers, yet no one knows who he is. But the only reason I'm even doing this video is recently some new information came out, and now people think that we have officially identified who Jack the Ripper was. It only took 140 years, but here we are. I have never done a video about Jack the Ripper. He's been in some videos like Biggest British Mysteries and stuff like that, but I have never done a full-on deep dive learning about it. Of course, I know about him and kind of the gist, but I don't know any of like the victims, the suspects, anything like that. So for the past 3 days, I have been doing all kinds of research. I mean, if y'all could see my screen right now, I have just files and files of information that I have been going through. So today we're gonna do a little bit of a deep dive on the story of Jack the Ripper. We're gonna look at the case, look at the victims, look at the suspects, and then talk about the new information that came out. And if after all these years we have finally found out who Jack the Ripper is. In 1888, 5 women were murdered on the East End of London, more specifically Whitechapel. Whitechapel wasn't the greatest place to live during that time. Poverty, crime, and it had some of the worst living conditions in London. The people there were really just trying to survive, and the police really weren't much help. Crimes like prostitution were considered okay as long as like you didn't disturb anybody while you did it. Like, yeah, it's still considered illegal, but as long as you don't make a scene about it, the cops, they didn't really care. And that was until a series of murders took place. Between the months of August and November in 1888, 5 women, known as the Canonical Five, were brutally murdered in the Whitechapel area. The names of these victims were Mary Ann Nicholas, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. She might be related to me. That might be like my great aunt or something. Each victim was a prostitute, and their murders, they were gruesome. I mean, like, the details I don't really want to go into, you know? You two might not like it. But basically, some of the injuries and reasons for their death, it was so, like, meticulous. Like, these wounds, there was a level of, like, medical precision with them. So when these happened, a lot of people speculated, like, whoever's doing these murders, they have some sort of medical knowledge. And as you could probably guess, yeah, these killings terrified a lot of people. Even the police of London were pretty scared of this guy who self-named himself, by the way, Jack the Ripper. During this crime spree, the London police started receiving these taunting letters, okay? And the most infamous letter is the Dear Boss letter, which Jack the Ripper signed Jack the Ripper at the bottom. So once he did that, the press and everybody just ran with it. And that's how he got the name Jack the Ripper. He gave it to himself. Self-entitled, if you ask me. The police received numerous letters throughout the few months. Some of them called Saucy Jackie. That was a postcard, and it referenced like the double murder of Stride and Eddowes. But probably the scariest letter and the most crazy letter out of all of them is titled The Letter from Hell. Okay, yeah. It was sent to a Whitechapel Vigilance Committee member, whatever that is. But this letter wasn't just any letter, okay? It included half of a preserved human kidney, allegedly from one of the victims. Yeah, slap a bow on that and put that under the Christmas tree. So obviously, you know, 5 women are murdered within a matter of months. This dude is kind of like making a mocking of the police. They had a widespread manhunt going on, and it wasn't like they weren't getting anything. They had multiple suspects. At that time, no one was ever caught. And, I mean, if I'm being honest, it's probably due to some sketchy police work, to say the least, you know? We have to remember, this is 1888, alright? And at that time, the police and the detectives, they weren't like what we know them as today. They didn't have a lot of technology and a lot of different ways to get evidence. But there was some evidence, like even back then, you would think, okay, that's pretty clear cut, you know? They didn't see it that way, like fingerprints. Back then, in 1888, in London, fingerprints were not considered feasible evidence. So, like, you could be there at the crime scene, be the only other person there, have fingerprints all over everything, leave before it happens. They can find the fingerprints, but that doesn't mean you did it. And a lot of times, you probably weren't even considered a suspect. So, like, that's kind of the police work that we were working with back in the day. But there were multiple suspects, and some of them were a little more clear than the other ones. So the first suspect is Montague? Sure, John Druitt. Sure. Montague was a barrister, basically a lawyer and a school teacher. And this was one of the first suspects that the police came across. And this one's interesting because Montague actually died just a month after the last murder, okay? He drowned in the River Thames. Yeah, some people thought he just offed himself, but this guy was so interesting as like a main suspect because after he passed away, the murder stopped. There was never another one. And also, it kind of went with the whole, oh, who's Jack the Ripper? Why haven't we found him yet? It's a mystery. Maybe it was the dude that, you know, jumped in the River Thames after murdering these 5 women. So the next suspect is Sir William Gull. Okay, this one's kind of crazy. Like I said, these murders, they were done with a medical-like precision. Whoever did this knew the body. They had more knowledge of like human anatomy than just like the average person, you know? And that's kind of what makes Sir William Gull interesting because he was a physician, but not just any physician, no. He was the royal physician to Queen Victoria. Yeah. The theory is that Gull was like involved in some sort of cover-up, maybe related to the royal family. Who knows? It seems like everything they always try to throw the royal family into it just to add some conspiracy to it. I don't know about that. But some people believe maybe he was trying to silence certain people and that just all these murders were part of some twisted, high-class royal family conspiracy. This one's a little far-fetched out there, but he was a suspect. This one really had like no solid proof. It was basically just a theory that kind of got thrown out there and people kind of just ran with it. The third suspect was Dr. Francis Tumblety. Dr. Francis was an American quack doctor. Not crack. He didn't just give people crack, I don't think. Who knows? It was 1888. But he was a doctor in the medical field, okay? And a lot of people said he had a weird, like, obsession with female anatomy. Gross. Like, bro, we all got hobbies, but that is not okay. Like, go fishing or something, bro. And he was actually arrested for some crimes against women. I'm not getting into all that in this video, but it was nasty. But again, he was a doctor. He knew about the human body and very specifically female anatomy. So those things made him a pretty prime suspect for this murder case. And what makes him even more of a suspect, he fled London right after these murders. And as soon as he leaves, there's not another murder. So he kind of fits the demographic that they were looking for, but there was really, again, no solid proof. Nothing that linked him to any of these women, nothing. He was just a weird doctor who obsessed about female anatomy, had a history of violence against women, and then he left London and nothing ever happened again. So kind of suspicious. The next suspect was a famous painter, okay, Walter Sickert. I had to look up some of this guy's paintings because they say he depicts like the murders in his paintings. And dude, these paintings, just looking at them, gives me chills. Some of these just don't sit right with me, like at all. And a writer named Patricia Cornwell found some sort of DNA evidence that she thought connected him to the murders. But this one, there wasn't much to go off of, you know, oh, his paintings are kind of weird, they might depict the murders. So it ended up just being like another theory that people kind of stretched out a bit. So in another conspiracy, okay, this is the last one before we get into the dude that might have actually been Jack the Ripper. Prince Albert Victor. Prince Albert Victor was Queen Victoria's grandson. Again, this is a very, very far-fetched conspiracy theory, but some people actually believed it could have been him. Basically, the idea was he had like a relationship with a common woman. And the theory is that to try to cover it up, people in like the royal circle committed these murders. I could low-key like make a whole video on just this theory, okay? Like it goes deep. A lot of people wanted to believe it, but I think at the end it is just one big conspiracy. I guess this whole thing is. Now it's time. There might be new evidence that has been discovered that this could have been Jack the Ripper. His name, Aaron Kosminski. Aaron was born in 1865 in Kłodawa. Sure, Poland. Kosminski immigrated into England in like the early 1880s, where he settled on the East End of London, Whitechapel. In Whitechapel, he worked as a barber, but Aaron, he had a lot of mental health problems, and he was known to suffer from paranoid schizophrenia. And reports say he heard voices and had an intense fear of being fed by others. Okay, so this dude, he wasn't going in any restaurants, I guess. And like his mental health problems were so bad, he was actually institutionalized twice. And the second time he was in there until he passed away in 1919. So Kosminski was actually like the main suspect, particularly by Chief Inspector Donald Swanson and Sir Robert Anderson. Okay, they claimed that there was a witness to one of these murders. They identified him as Aaron Kosminski, but they refused to testify. There was basically an eyewitness that identified Aaron as Jack the Ripper, but refused to testify against him. Now we get into the newer evidence, okay? I was on Twitter the other day. It's a bad, or X, whatever you want to call it. All of like the popular accounts started posting this one news clip talking about Aaron Kosminski being identified as Jack the Ripper. And you know, it was going around like it was brand new evidence, and I really thought it was. That's kind of the whole reason I got into like researching this, because I wanted to make a video about it. New evidence. Oh, we think we've identified Jack the Ripper. That's crazy. But it turns out that news clip and this evidence was actually from 2014. It just resurfaced for whatever reason. But I've never heard of this, so I looked into it. And basically in 2014, a book by Russell Edwards titled Naming Jack the Ripper claimed that DNA evidence from a shawl found at the murder scene of Catherine Eddowes, Jack the Ripper's fourth victim, pointed to Aaron Kosminski as Jack the Ripper. So this author, Russell Edwards, reportedly purchased the bloodstained shawl at auction, and he got this guy, Dr. Yari Louis Lanin, sure, Dr. Jari, a molecular biologist, whatever that is. He basically got him to analyze it and do a bunch of DNA tests and whatever, and this dude, he claimed to extracted mitochondrial DNA. Alright, we're talking about 40-year-old shawl with blood on it. You know, it's old, so you gotta get real in there to get some stuff out of it, right? And he compared that little bit of DNA he got out of it to the DNA of a known descendant of Aaron Kosminski. And allegedly, none of this was proven, I guess, because everything I found about it, it all said allegedly. But he allegedly found a match. Again, this is a very distant relative to Aaron. The bloodstained shawl, like I said, is 140 years old. He apparently got the little bit of DNA he could out of that shawl, compared it to a distant relative, and it was a match. It might be, it's probably him, right? Probably not. Because here's the issues with, like, the whole evidence, the shawl and everything. There's no, like, concrete evidence that the shawl was actually at the crime scene in 1888. It basically just popped up, like, decades later with no official record linking it to Eddowes or Aaron or the murders or anything. It was just kind of like, hey, this has some blood on it. This might be Jack the Ripper. And then we get more into the actual process that Dr. Jari did to get the DNA out of it. Mitochondrial DNA can basically only confirm like a broad maternal lineage, right? So it gets deep. But basically it means it could match a lot of people, not just like one specific dude. And then the actual study, okay? This author just hired some random doctor. Yeah, he's a mitochondrial biologist or whatever, but there was actual criticisms of the study itself. People were saying that it wasn't peer-reviewed, so nobody else looked at it, and it actually contained calculation errors. Like, bro, this is your job. How are you going to mess up the calculation? So that's basically the newer evidence claiming that it could have been Aaron Kosminski. Again, this is one of the biggest mysteries and cold cases in the world. So when something like that, even though the studies and, you know, the actual DNA, there's a lot of questions and concerns and actual, like, mistakes in it, that popping up and saying, hey, this could have been Jack the Ripper is always going to make the news. I'm making a whole video about it now just because of this, and this happened 11 years ago. So, but, you know, like, widely, a lot of people are like, no, it's not definite proof. There's some people out there that are like, dude, it's him. But for the large majority of people are like, no, that doesn't really confirm it. And the Jack the Ripper case is still one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. I don't think it will ever be solved. You know, it's been so long. You know, some dude ain't gonna come out from a cave and be like, hey, I'm Jack the Ripper. No, he's long and gone, okay? If you ask me, my personal opinion, I'm leaning more towards Montague. Just because he did have medical knowledge, he had a weird fascination with females, and he mysteriously drowned in the River Thames, and then the murder stopped. So, like, I don't know. Y'all have to let me know what y'all think down in the comments. Again, I researched this for like 4 days, but I'm sure I missed some stuff, maybe got some stuff wrong. This is my first time ever really deep diving into it, so y'all let me know. I'm sure y'all got a lot more information on it that I didn't find. Let me know down in the comments. Y'all want to see more videos like this? Y'all want me to go into some other British mysteries, cold cases, whatever? I would love to do it, so y'all let me know if y'all want to see more like this. I love you guys so much. Make sure I go today. Spread some love, spread some kindness, do something nice in my day. I love you guys so much, really do. JTReacts, I'm out. Peace.